Hello, my name is Eric Follick. I'm a Platonist contemplative ascetic and renunciant. I would like to read for you a short essay that I wrote. It's called Flesh Eating as the Fall of the Soul in Plato's Republic by Eric S. Follick. If you would like to see or read the original uh, written version of this essay, you can find it along with my other writings and translations at platonistasceticism.blogspot.com. Again, that's platonistasceticism at blogspot.com. platonistasceticism.blogspot.com, and also on my academia.edu profile at independent.academia.edu/Eric, capital ERIC, no space, capital FALLICK. So, okay, here we go. The Politeia, or quote, Republic of Plato, is an allegorical, symbolic manual and description of individual contemplative ascetic spiritual practice. As the text itself repeatedly states and makes clear, the quote city is just an analogy, a blown up symbolic picture for the individual soul. It has nothing at all to do with politics, political philosophy, so called, or governance of states. Socrates, quote, represents nous, intellect, and the higher divine part of the soul and its divine understanding. Nous descends from the noetic realm to this lower realm of the senses, and lower soul, quote, goes down from the town to the Piraeus, unquote, and in doing so becomes associated with a lower soul and faculties, quote, with Glaucon, son of Ariston. Nous initially descends only so far as to participate in divine spiritual activities and contemplation in the lower realm of soul. Quote, we'll be offering prayers to the goddess and wanting at the same time to view the festival, unquote. It then is immediately returning to the noetic realm, but is restrained by more lower souls and faculties, quote, Polemarchus, and the others, and compelled to remain for a time and instruct them in righteousness and divine matters. Book 1 then proceeds to establish the correct divine understanding based on the noetic realm and the forms of righteousness and holiness and their necessity and superiority for living a well-off life against the naturalistic materialist, in both senses of the word, physicalist, immoral, worldly understanding, quote, Thrasymachus, unquote. Book 2 through the first part of Book 5, then, using the analogy and symbolism of the, quote, city, though constantly reminding that it is only, just that, and showing how it is a projection for understanding the individual soul, and the, quote, guardians, the thoughts, understandings, and discursive reasoning and cognitive state of the soul, describes the cognitive and emotional condition and training and disposition and ordering of the soul in this world as a whole, with both its true higher part and the lower soul and faculties endemic to being at the lowest level that is the sense world of the beginning and for a long time conditioned ascetic practitioner. That is, initially and for a long time on the path, the contemplative ascetic practitioner has proper orientation, thoughts, and ordering of soul only as a conditioned state attained through practice, without actual direct realization and understanding and ordering directly from the higher hypostases and spiritual realities. This is a necessary preliminary stage of the practice, and indeed one at which the practitioner will likely remain for many births as he progresses, but is still a conditioned relative state, one of right opinion rather than true knowledge, and as such is unstable and has the possibility of being disrupted or lost until it is made into true knowledge and permanence through direct experience of the higher hypostases. The latter part of Book 5 through Book 7 then describe the further practice of actual direct contemplative experience of the higher hypostases, the attaining of actual true knowledge of the way things are, and correct and renunciant ascetic practice, the mode of practice with this knowledge and experience, and the transformation of the conditioned contemplative ascetic practitioner liable to the possibility of falling from his conditioned state of practice, however wonderful it is, into a truly divine renunciant with actual stable knowledge and a permanent understanding and ordering of the soul that is not liable to regress until the final end is attained. Book 8 and the first part of Book 9 then describe how the conditioned practicing soul might fall and the various types of lower souls in this world down to the very worst. The rest of Book 9 and Book 10 show the superiority of righteousness and contemplative asceticism over the worldly way and cover various important topics of spiritual practice and metaphysics and transmigration. In Book 2, quote, Socrates initially proposes and begins to develop the model of the, quote, city as a blown-up analogy for understanding righteousness in the individual soul. The, quote, city, the complex soul and individuated sensate existence in space-time, with higher and lower souls and faculties together in relation to each other, develops upon the initial fall of the true soul into the lower realm of soul and body and the senses from the noetic realm due to the need for now dealing with the senses, maintaining the psychophysical organism and body, and dealing with individual apparent objects appearing one after another in space-time. At this point, at its initial minimal descent, the soul and its thoughts and faculties naturally live a simple, reclusive, contemplative, ascetic life, with only the minimum lower faculties and minimum possessions and involvements in worldly affairs to maintain bodily existence. It, or now the person, just has enough clothing, shoes, and shelter for protection from the elements as necessary according to the season. He reclines on the ground on simple mats and eats from simple utensils made from leaves, etc. He most significantly for this discussion eats a simple grain-based vegetarian diet with the addition of some modest vegetarian, quote, relishes for complete nutrition. Note that when the text refers to the modest and moderate drinking of, quote, wine, that, quote, wine is a symbol for the senses, which are intoxicants to the soul. So the text is saying that the contemplative ascetic recluse living in peace makes use of the senses only to a moderate degree as necessary to the minimum extent possible. A contemplative ascetic and philosophos, of course, never drinks even a drop of wine in the literal sense, or any sort of alcohol, and the divine Plato never would suggest that he may. Incidentally, this symbolism of, quote, wine as representing the senses and sense experience occurs elsewhere in the dialogues, most notably, of course, in the Symposium. He passes his leisure in divine contemplation, quote, hymning the gods, unquote, and contenting himself with the higher and lower faculties in order, quote, pleasantly being together with each other, unquote. He produces no thoughts of wanting any more, quote, not making children beyond the present substance, taking care to avoid want or war, unquote. He passes his life in peace and health, maturing these renunciant and contented thoughts and mental states, and continuing such as further circumstances continue or develop, quote, reaching old age and handing down another life of such a sort to the offspring, unquote. This, the text makes clear, is the true, healthy, and proper way of life, the minimum declension of the fallen soul, if it has to be here in this realm, the reclusive, contemplative, ascetic, renunciant life. How then does this true ascetic pure life degenerate into the mess of ordinary human life and the world as we see it, and the people around us, this mess having been such since time immemorial? How does the soul, after its initial fall, then fall even deeper into becoming samsara, genesis, the cycle of birth and death? The lowest faculty of the soul embedded in the body, glaucon, quote, seeing the bad way of sensual pleasures and desires lived by most all in samsara, is not satisfied with the simple ascetic life and wants all the sensual pleasures and sense experiences and desires that it sees around it. It turns and corrupts the whole person and soul to consider these necessary and desirable, and to pursue them and dive headlong into the karmic mess of samsara and create the kind of lives we see around us. Not only does it now require comfortable furnishings and utensils to use while indulging its now excessive and luxurious desire for food and feasting, but, most crucially, now wants and even thinks it necessary to eat meat, to eat animal flesh, and to kill for this purpose, as it sees those doing around it. This creates the inflamed, unhealthy, licentious, quote, city or soul. In true Orphic fashion, flesh-eating and killing is shown to be a critical turning point in the fall of the soul, leading to the wandering as an alien in the cycle of repeated birth and death. And of course, reversing this and becoming vegetarian again is a crucial and essential step in escaping from becoming and returning to the soul's pristine state. Once the soul has imbibed the greed for flesh and meat, and has abandoned the true ascetic life that no longer suffices for it, and has come to require its life of continual killing and production of meat for its consumption, this leads in snowball fashion to desires for all manners of luxuries, possessions, entertainments, etc., as listed in the text, and even for sex, quote, female companions, and quote, the things concerning feminine adornment. Following from the perverse desire for flesh eating, the soul and its thoughts are darkened, and it becomes firmly ensconced in pursuing the desires of this world, and ever binding itself to and suffering on the wheel of birth and death, a true Orphic as well as a Platonic image. The explication of the complete meaning of the Politeia would be a great task. Perhaps this short essay has given a tiny pointer in that direction. At any rate, the Politeia reminds us that flesh-eating is a great crime and primal transgression, and that vegetarianism is an indispensable prerequisite of genuine spiritual life and practice. That's it for this essay. Thank you very much. I hope that's helpful. Bye-bye.